Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Quebec NDP MP Philip Toone was born and raised in Ottawa and moved to Montreal at the age of 19 to go to school. It was in Montreal that he met his husband, Martin, who was studying to be a physician, and together they moved up to the Gaspé. Philip Toone ran in the 2011 election, and much to his surprise and to the surprise of everyone else, he won. Philip Toone joins me now to talk about life beyond politics. Philip Toone, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's really great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that you grew up with a whole bunch of liberals. Is this correct?
That's absolutely true. My mother is a long time liberal. Her father, my grandfather, was, every time I saw him, he would just sing the praises of the Liberal Party and insist that we vote for them. Every time we had dinner together, it was, here is what Trudeau did today, and here is what Louis Saint Laurent did when I worked for him, and on and on and on. It was genetic, frankly, and I was expected to carry that torch far into the future.
Were you disowned when you
people
not only didn't, but did it from a different party?
When I first started getting active in politics at 16, at the dinner table, people started getting a little confused. Here I was saying that the Liberal Party wasn't really enough, that we needed to go further. At the time I met Ed Broadbent, and I thought, wow, this guy, like, he really speaks for the little people. And, you know, at 16 you want to be a bit of a rebel, and frankly, you know, the whole idea of, like, well, your parents say something, so surely, you know, that must be wrong, right? But honestly, at 16 I started getting involved in the NDP, and I never looked back since.
Wow. Was it, you said that people were confused, but was it a sense of agitation as well, or were they just glad that you were interested?
It was expected that I'd be interested. It wasn't at all surprising. All of us in the family, we'd been always, you know, politics was always a big part of the family. It might be because I grew up in Ottawa. I mean, Ottawa is, you know, a capital city. That's what makes this place go. Certainly when I was a kid, really the only major industry in Ottawa was Parliament and government structure. So it's always been part of the discussion in my family, and we've always been involved. My mother had been part of all these different committees and really pushing hard. I remember, like, as a kid, if something went wrong at school, she would show up. Like, she wouldn't wait for the PTA meeting. She would show up, like, that day and explain to the teachers just what she thought of what was going on. Right?
Wow. So she was an activist herself,
absolutely.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot from them. I mean, again, at 16, you look at your parents as being, like, you know, your enemy, or certainly people who are clearly don't understand what's going on, at the very least.
Right.
But now I realize, after time, I realized, well, I think one of the reasons I got so involved was because my grandfather was so involved, was because my mother was so involved, my father as well. Yeah. My sisters, almost all of my family now, we're involved at some level. My sister runs a legal aid clinic now. She has for years. My sister Sue is a nurse, and it's essentially the Nurse Nightingale phenomenon, where she just wants to help people constantly. Yeah. We've got that kind of, like, public, the need to help the people. It's always been part of the
DNA, really.
Yeah, the DNA, the structure that just sort of bound the family together. So we've always had that kind of thought that you have to help your fellow man, your neighbors. It was always important. I mean, my mother, she expresses it a lot with her Catholic faith, and the rest of the family now, I think we're expressing it more on at a more public, more agnostic, if you want, level. But it's certainly part of our DNA. We want to help people, and you know, I think we've always been sort of either on the center or the center left or the left, whatever. We've always the idea of ever voting right wing. At one point, one of my sisters married somebody who made it clear.
She married him at one point.
Yeah, they had these difficult family relationship there for a while. They actually stayed together, but it was a problem in our family where her husband came out and said that he wanted to vote Conservative. Well, my mother, I mean, she didn't stop talking about that for 2 months. She was shocked, appalled that somebody in the family would be turning blue. That's just absolutely unacceptable in our family. But
so orange was a much closer color to red.
In fact, most of my family is now voting NDP.
Well, I bet they are.
My sister Louise here in Ottawa she puts up signs ever since Marion Dorr was running. I mean, she's been putting up signs trying to get people to vote progressive. And my mother, now that I've become an NDP MP, all of a sudden she's decided, hey, well, yeah, maybe the NDP makes sense. Right?
So your mom is still alive?
Yeah, she's still around.
That's great. Is she in Ottawa?
Yeah, she lives here. I left Ottawa when I was 19.
Yeah, you were born and raised here. I mean,
Yeah.
This was where you spent the majority of your life.
Yeah, and I still have lots of friends and family here.
Right.
It's when I come here, I feel at home, right?
Sure.
And I'd been gone for 25 years at least when I got elected. And my mother, her first thought was wonderful, right? I'm finally going to get to see my son more often.
Yes, and that doesn't happen so much, I bet.
As it turns out, we don't see each other as much as we thought we would.
Yeah.
I try to make time. I make a point of trying sometimes on certain weekends to just come back a little sooner, so we might have like Sunday dinner, Easter dinner,
Yes.
events that can bring the family together. I try to make sure that I'm here. But absolutely, when I first got elected, one of the thoughts was clearly, oh, well, wonderful, I get to see my Ottawa family more often. And I still reach them just like I used to, which is pick up the phone, right?
Right, and call. Mm-hmm. Do they ever come and watch you in the house?
Yeah, they do every now
and
again.
Do they? That's nice. Or is it nerve-wracking?
No, well, certainly the first time it was just sort of surprising to see them up there. They didn't tell me.
Okay.
But when you're...
Surprise!
Certainly being in front of any public, and even my own family, I mean, it's not a stressful thing. You just be yourself, right?
Right.
If there's one thing I've learned about being an MP, quite frankly, anybody could do it. It's a question of time. It's a question of persistence, putting your energy into things, focusing, trying to listen. You need to be able to listen. But if you've got that capacity, frankly, I mean, there's no reason why most people couldn't go out there. I mean, when I ran for office, I wasn't planning on being an MP. I think that's fairly clear.
Do you mean
to
the
anybody.
first time you ran? You ran in 2004,
Yeah, I've
right?
run 3 times, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was the first time?
Now you're testing my memory.
I'm sorry.
I think it might have been around the year 2000, roughly.
And was it federally that you ran?
Yeah, always for the federal NDP.
Always federally, okay.
Mm-hmm. The first time was in Mauricie-Champlain, which at one point was held by Chrétien, in fact.
Right.
Then the second last time was in the Gaspé after I'd moved there.
Yes.
And more recently again in the Gaspé, where I actually won.
Because if you've run twice and you haven't won, a lot of times you'll just let it go. Although, in fact, to be totally truthful, a lot of the people that we talk to here keep running because they just really want it. But was that the case for you? You just really wanted to do it?
I really wanted people to have the choice of voting NDP. I really wanted to be the standard bearer, being present, being able to explain to people that there is an option. There isn't just always going back and forth in Quebec, in any event, it was between the Liberals or a blue option, either the Conservative blue or the Bloc blue, but it was always back and forth. And I was there to say, well, there is a third way. There is an option. There's an option that believes in progressive politics and a belief in the little people come first. I wanted to make sure people knew that option was there. I didn't ever expect to win. In fact, I had a career that I had to manage. And
you're a notary and you're a lawyer.
Yeah, an attorney. Yes. That's right. And the idea of becoming an MP and also managing my legal profession.
Right.
I mean, I can't do both.
Right.
And that was the thing that came as a bit of a shock when I actually got elected. I actually thought of it like on the night of, it was just kind of a surprise. Me and the Green candidate decided, we knew that the NDP was going to do well that night. And we decided, the two of us, we'd invite our friends and supporters to come to a bar where we live in the Gaspé and just bring in the evening and see all the results for all of the NDPers who are going to get elected. We knew around Montreal things are going to go pretty well. But the first result of the night was, in fact, my riding, because of it's in a different time zone. It's the only one in Quebec that's in a different time zone.
Is it really?
Yeah, so we got the first results, and I was leading, and I almost fell off my chair. I couldn't believe that.
Okay, now, were you scared? Did you have a moment of, oh my God, this might actually...
Yeah, it hadn't occurred to me that I could actually become the MP for the riding. And it wasn't part of my plans in any way, shape, or form. I was planning on the next day just going back to my practice and taking care of my clients, and that was that. When I saw that we were ahead in the Gaspé, I realized my life is about to change, and in a way that I hadn't prepared for. And it's interesting, when I grew up in Ottawa, right? I mean, one would think I would actually know what it is to become an MP because I grew up here. But when you grow up, certainly in my case, growing up in Ottawa, I didn't learn about Parliament. I learned about government, right? Everybody I knew when I grew up, their parents all worked for government.
Right.
They would either work, for
So
the Ministry of Transport, bureaucrats,
yes.
clerks, what have you.
Administrative professionals.
We never talked about what it is to be a parliamentarian, right? Parliament was just a building that at school outings we might go to every now and again and go up the Peace Tower and take in the view. That was it, right? That's what Parliament is. Yes, there's a Prime Minister and he's important and he sits in that chair, but you never really learn what Parliament really is. To become an MP all of a sudden means your life is devoted to public service, and people expect that you're going to be present on the ground, representing them in Ottawa, present at activities back in the riding. My time is being torn left, right, and center. I have to try to manage all these things, and at the same time be listening to what people's needs are and bring them forward to Ottawa in a coherent and knowledgeable way.
Right.
It
and
takes
you have
a lot of effort.
And
I have a spouse who at first wanted to basically leave me. But
I bet. So tell me about that discussion. Because I'm pretty sure you would have said, it's not going to happen, I'm not going to win, I'm just going to run because I think it's important people have an option.
Yeah, we
laughed.
And
he said, okay.
Yeah, we laughed. The NDP needed a candidate in the Gaspé. The Gaspé has always been like one of the last places they would care about because the results for the NDP were always pretty atrocious.
As evidenced by your first runs.
Yeah, I got 3% I think of the vote. I mean, it's just it's pathetic. But at this, when we talked about me running again, I said, listen, this is just me trying to make sure that people know the option is there, making sure that we wave the flag. And we laughed. Yeah, he said, yeah, just, for him it was just like this hobby of mine, right? And he's not political, but he understood that I am. And yeah, so go knock yourself out, have some fun. And we agreed, I wasn't going to put a lot of effort into it because I still have a practice to manage, right? Just because the Prime Minister calls an election doesn't mean I can call my clients and go,
yes.
That house you wanted to buy, well, you know what, we're going to put that off for a couple of months.
Sure.
Right? Couldn't really do that. So I had a lot of work to do at work. I couldn't spend all my time campaigning full time. I spoke to a friend of mine, I remember at the beginning, a friend of mine in Toronto, and I told her my odds were 3 billion to 1 to win the election. And Martin and I, my spouse, we just sort of laughed. Right? We just joked about it. The night of the election, he was in bed, and I called him and woke him up, and I told him I won. And he went, well, you won what? He had no idea what I was talking about. And I said, I just won the election. I'm the MP for the Gaspé. And he's like, oh, God, we'll talk about it tomorrow. So the next day, he wasn't very happy. No. And honestly, it took about a year for him to get over the fact that we were having this crazy long-distance relationship.
Because hadn't he also just returned to the area after? Is he a physician? Am I right? Okay.
That's
so
right.
Had he been doing another degree?
Yeah. That was the irony of this thing for us personally. We just spent about the last 6 years living back and forth between Montreal and the Gaspé. I got a law degree.
Yes.
And while I was doing my law degree, he was working at the hospital where we live, making some money. And the understanding is when I finished my law degree, he would go back and get a master's in epidemiology.
Okay.
And I would work and support the family. And so we've been doing this for 6 years, just seeing each other infrequently and trying to see each other as much as we could, but
yes.
Just not that often. But doing the back and forth long distance romance thing. And it was maybe 2 weeks before the election where he's finished his degree, I finished my degree, we're both done, we're both going, great. It's April, I guess it was, We're going to settle down now, finally be able to live together in this home we love, in the Gaspé, by the sea. It's going to be wonderful. 2 weeks later, I find out, nope, it's not going to happen. I'm going to be gone 8 months of the year.
Oh my gosh.
And so he was under a bit of a shock.
How long have you been together?
We met at the ice storm in Montreal in
okay.
98.
98?
Yeah. I was looking for a warm cafe, and he happened to be there.
Oh, wow. Well, because I was going to say maybe what's going to keep the relationship strong is this long-distance thing, but you have actually experienced the living together element. Like, you were really genuinely looking forward to getting back to.
Yeah, we were. We sort of got used to maybe doing this long-distance thing, so maybe that helped. Right, the divorce rate of couples who are MPs is very high, higher than the average as far as I know. So it puts a lot of stress. So maybe we were lucky in that sense that we had just spent 6 years essentially apart.
Yeah,
that it prepared us for continuing being apart and just sort of putting off that date when we're going to be back together again. And now, you know, it's impossible to know what the next election is going to be like. So are we still going to be apart after 2015?
Yes.
I have no idea.
How unpredictable. Do you mind that? Do you mind the unpredictability of it?
It's stressful. It's very stressful. The job is intense, but it's also very rewarding. I mean, it's very exciting to be able to represent people back home. What I'd really like, the element that I would love to add to all this is also be in government. Right. Because it's also very, very discouraging to be constantly bringing forward the needs of the people and having a government that just goes, well, yeah, but that's not our priority. We have other priorities. So the tools of government are definitely my next step. If I'm going to continue doing this, I want to be on the side of government. And I got to give it to Quebecers. They're smart. When they vote, they want to vote because they want to win. And they've been going through a bit of a frustrating period with the Bloc. They weren't sure where to go because the Bloc was, as you remember, they got formed around the time in '95. There was a referendum. At first we thought the Bloc was just going to be a party that was going to represent Quebec during possible sovereignist negotiations in Ottawa. That never happened. But then people got very tired of the Liberal Party, the whole sponsorship scandal and stuff. So Quebecers were just sort of turning around in circles trying to figure out where do we go. We're tired of the Bloc. We don't have the Liberals. And finally, with Jack Layton, they finally found the opening to see that there's another option, right? And that's where we came in. And I think it's very exciting that we were able to bring a renewed sense of partnership with the rest of Canada that they didn't used to have. So this is, for me, a very exciting period. I can help bring Quebec to Canada, and I can help bring Canada back to Quebec. And I think if we can help unify this country and make it grow forward again, I think I'd be thrilled to be part of that process.
On that front, and wanting to be government, and I can obviously understand if you're going to make this commute and be apart from your partner, you really want to feel like you're getting somewhere with your issues. But you were saying how pretty much anyone can become an MP. It requires a specific set of factors, but a lot of people look at Quebec and they think, wow, a lot of NDP came here and they weren't expecting to win. Like it was a shock. So do you think people are willing to take the chance of voting again in that way? I mean,
I can't predict what's going to happen in 2015. I don't have a crystal ball. I do think the people are always right. So whatever choice they make in the future is the right one for them, and more power to them.
Yeah.
But we'll see. The question is, where do they want to go next? People are unpredictable.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're living through a period right now where all the parties seem to be going up and down in the polls. I couldn't tell you where we're going to be in the next 6 months, much less in the next 2 years.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing about politics too, isn't it? Because you just can't make a plan for your personal life.
None. It's impressive just how you have to really give up. You become a product if you're in politics. You're there to present a product. You're there to listen to people so you can create that product and then bring it back to them. Is this what you wanted? Is this what you wanted? Yes, great. Let's do that. It's hard because at the same time, like as I said, I had my own attorney's practice, notary practice in Quebec. I was very happy taking care of my clients, I had to put all that aside.
Sure.
And so what do I do in 2015
Right.
if I'm no longer an MP?
Right. It's not like you can go back to all those people and say, hey, I'm back.
Yeah, let's just start off where we left off, right? In fact, my office, I've given it to, there was a young notary who wanted to just start practicing in my area, and I thought, well, perfect. I need to go to something else, and I have this office that's just waiting for somebody to manage it. So I said, here, just take it. Right? Just go, enjoy, try to build your practice. But I live in an area where most communities are only 1,000, 2,000 people, right? You can't have multiple attorneys in these small communities. I mean, there's only so many places where people need your help.
Right.
So I can't just go back in 2015 and go, well, I'm really happy you manage my office now. Get out of my way because I'm back.
Right.
I suppose I could, but honestly, that wouldn't be very, very nice of me. So I got to be. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen. There. I owned a building back home. I had to sell it. Quite frankly, the year I got elected, financially, it was a mess for me. The building I owned, now I'm this long distance landlord where people are calling me. The toilet is overflowing. It's like, okay, I'm in 1,500 kilometers from your place right now. Could you maybe call a plumber? Because I have no idea what I could do for you.
Yeah. Wow.
It was. So I sold the building. I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to see if I could actually rent my own office to myself, but anyway.
You can't do that.
No.
It
It wouldn't have been proper. There was always the doubt that I'm giving myself a good deal, right?
Sure.
And so anyway, I just decided just avoid any possible ethics conflicts.
Yes.
Get rid of the building. I opened up a new office at the other side of the street, which used to be rented by the previous MP, who's a friend of mine, by the way. It was kind of like, hi, sorry your party's not in office anymore.
Sorry I took your job.
I hope our friendship is still sort of intact.
I'm as surprised as you are.
He was really nice about it, though. When I took over his office, we met maybe 2 days after the election. He didn't send everything to the shredder. He said, "Okay, here's the files that they need your help on this, this, and this."
Oh, that is great.
Did it. Like we both understood this is a public service we're doing, right? This is aside from the partisan stuff.
Yeah.
We agree that we disagree on certain issues, but what we all agree on is that we're there to help people.
Sure.
And I really respect him for that. I think, and I hope I can do the same thing. I plan on doing the same thing if and when I ever change and pass on to somebody else. I want to make sure that they're going to start on the ground running as well.
Right.
But it's important to be present, though. Like the best way to be on the ground running, the best advice I could give to anybody who becomes a new MP is go out there and meet people. Just make sure you're known so people know to come to you. It's an odd thing about the Bloc in Quebec. They tried, I think one of their plans was to make the federal MP as unimportant as possible so that people wouldn't go to the federal government for help. And so oftentimes, the office I had in Carleton, the mayor of the town told me he didn't even realize that the MP had an office in his own town.
Wow.
To me, that was astonishing.
Yes.
Like how could the mayor not know that his MP has an office in his own town? They didn't go out there and try to make themselves known.
So you're trying to make that, you're trying to be out there as much as possible.
Absolutely.
But is it tough because what's your commute like?
It takes me roughly about 10 hours to get from Ottawa back home, depending on connections and all that.
Flying?
Flying with connection times, and
my gosh.
I don't live anywhere near an airport, and that's another thing I would suggest to anybody who plans on running for office who lives in a remote area.
Yes.
Make sure you live in a town that has an airport.
Okay. Maybe you could get a pilot's license.
I was thinking of that actually.
Yeah.
The leader of the NDP in New Brunswick actually suggested it. Planes are expensive, but they don't lose a lot of value, so you can actually resell them almost for the same price you bought them.
Right.
So I'm actually thinking about that. Of course, the tricky part is where would I land the thing, but one step at a time.
Yes, of course. There's a nice long part of Parliament Hill there. You could land on the lawn.
But it would definitely help if the airport was a little closer.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. So how far is your house from the airport?
About 2.5 hours.
No kidding.
Yeah. In the wintertime, it's a little tricky.
I bet it is.
And I try to avoid driving at night because it is the bush, so you got to avoid moose, right?
Yes.
You don't want to hit one of those.
Wow. Let's go back to the story about how you met your husband.
Right. That was back in '98. Again, it was the ice storm. I was in an area of Montreal where the power had been out for a few days, and I was essentially refugeeing myself at a friend's place in an area of downtown that still, by some miracle, still had power. There was a coffee shop, and he lived in the area where they still had power, so that was great. I was very happy to meet him, and he was like, I have room in my place. Like, wonderful.
I'll move in? Really?
Just for a few days.
Honestly, did you even know this man?
He was a friend of a friend.
Okay.
So he was sitting at a table with a friend, and I sat down,
see. Okay.
and then we just sort of talked, and he said, I have room, and then we just took it off from there. At the time, he was studying to be a doctor.
Yeah.
So that to study to be a doctor requires an awful lot of time. So he was a very busy guy when we first met.
Right.
So the relationship started slowly.
Right.
But the fact that he was willing to take me in definitely paved the path.
Yes. And he can save your life.
Very handy.
It's very, very helpful thing to have.
Absolutely.
In a spouse.
If ever I need any prescriptions, what have you, I can find his friends who can help me get a prescription very quickly.
That's perfect.
It's very handy to be within the circle of doctors.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Where I live, it's odd because in the Gaspé is not a very wealthy area.
Yeah.
But where I live is, in fact, probably the wealthiest area of all of Eastern Quebec because it's all doctors and nurses.
Is that right?
Yeah. This is the average income where I live is sky high compared to everywhere else.
Huh.
For that area, I mean, the average wage in Ottawa, I'm sure, is much higher.
Yes.
But where I live, people have these palatial homes, and it's all very impressive.
How did you end up there?
Doctors at the time needed to do a 3-year rotation in a far remote region.
Yeah.
And we knew people who lived there. We also knew the hospital was well managed. It's one of the better managed remote hospitals in Quebec. So we thought, okay, well, we'll do our stint out there. For me, it was a bit of a problem. I had to try to set up shop in an area I hadn't lived in.
You had no connections with.
I had a few friends, but becoming a professional, I had to meet I had to find godparents basically in the area who would chaperone me through.
Right.
But
you spoke French, just so I'm clear.
You're fully bilingual. Both Martin and I are both perfectly bilingual.
Right.
My mother's Quebecer, French Quebecer, and my father's Anglophone.
Okay.
And the same thing with my spouse Martin. His mother is Francophone Quebecer, and his father is an Anglophone from Ontario.
Okay.
So we have exactly the same kind of heritage in that sense. But when he moved out there, when we both moved out there, we fell in love with the place. We've been living there on and off with that whole back and forth thing for a while, but on and off, we've been living there, I think, close to 12 years now.
Wow.
We love it. It's a beautiful area. And one of the things that when we first moved there, we realized it's easy to get back to Montreal. There's a regular train service between Montreal and the Gaspé. It's an overnight train. And we figured we would always stay there as long as there was a train service.
Because now?
The train's at risk, but anyway, we're a little worried about that. We might have to rethink that maybe the train service isn't essential to our being part of the Gaspé. But the thought, we used to live in Montreal, and it's not like we would go to the art center every day. Right? We would just go every now and again. So I would go see plays, and I would go do city things just as often as when I lived in the Gaspé as when I lived in the city.
Sure.
I mean, we're all busy, right? We can't go to the National Arts Center in Ottawa every day of every week. So
you still have what you feel is the best of both worlds.
Yeah. It's a beautiful area. It's accessible. It's it's remote. It's certainly longer than your regular rush hour commute to get out there. But with a bit of planning, and that's what people do out there. When people need to get supplies, buy clothing, we just sort of plan ahead. A lot of people every 6 months or so they'll go to the big metropolis of Rimouski or possibly Quebec City and just load up on supplies. Sure. And then we were good for a good 6 months.
I'm sorry that we have to end our conversation now because I've truly enjoyed having the opportunity to chat with you. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate that you would take the time to be here.
I appreciate it as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.